So recently I shot a video that gave a quick synopsis of what the three primary political parties were offering in ways of their housing platforms heading into the 2021 federal election. And today I thought it'd be good to actually shoot a quick video giving my thoughts on those and my opinions on what I would be doing if I were running for election. Hello, this is Cory. So I've recorded a few videos over the past half a year as we've watched the real estate market take off like a rocket. I've touched on things such as, are we in a bubble here in the Canadian real estate market? Are there kind of improper practices around the whole process of bidding on properties, and should any of that be adjusted? You can also go back and watch those videos, and we'll link some of them down below as well for you to check out if you're interested. So I think if you're going to look at the Canadian housing market and what the issues are, it's kind of been a perfect storm in the sense that we've had an increased demand and we've had very, very low interest rates, making housing more affordable, or let's say even more expensive housing become more affordable to Canadians, given that their monthly mortgage costs, you know, for $1 million house is maybe the same as what it would have been for a $700,000 house a couple of years ago. So it just gives us more bandwidth to go and spend more money. On top of that, we just haven't been able to keep up with the demand, and throughout COVID, more and more people have been spending time at home and realizing that, hey, maybe they want a bit more space, or they want a larger backyard, or maybe they just want to get out into the country as well. So I think if you're going to fix this problem, not only is it a supply issue, it's also a demand issue, and you have to look at both sides of that. And the real estate market is really simple in the sense that you can control it by just controlling even one of those factors. And these political parties seem to be focusing squarely on supply and trying to provide more houses for Canadians. The issue with that is that it takes time, and throwing money at something doesn't always mean that it's going to fix the problem. While I think supply is an issue, you have to look at where the supply is going. Most home builders do not want to stretch out and go through the whole process of building a house and building something that is affordable. The profit margins aren't quite as high in houses like that, whereas if they can build one-floor condos for empty nesters or big two-story houses for growing families, there tends to be a bit more money in that, and that's where we're seeing a lot of the building happening. So trying to create affordable housing for first-time homebuyers and younger Canadians who are most drastically affected by this housing market is an uphill battle. So the government has a few options. Either they can, highly subsidize first-time homebuyers, allowing them to reach into those higher price points, but that only means that you're gonna push those markets even higher as well, because you're gonna put more demand into those markets. The other option is that you cool off demand so that housing prices slow down and that they don't continue to grow so rapidly. So everybody talks about interest rates, and that is certainly one way that you could cool off demand. You could increase interest rates and it would make things less affordable for people. Essentially, people's monthly mortgage payments would go up, and all of a sudden those big houses and all the other houses as well would just become less affordable, and it would cool off the real estate market. The reason they don't do that is because it would also cripple a lot of Canadians who have leveraged themselves too much, and it would put them into financial distress, and potentially you would see an increase in defaults on mortgages and bankruptcies, which is one of the last things that the Canadian government wants to do. So still the question remains is, how do you create affordable housing? How do you create housing that first-time homebuyers and the typical Canadian can actually get into? And this is part of my frustration, which you would have seen come out in some of my previous videos, is that, in my opinion, the government is the one that created this situation. They printed tons and tons of money throughout COVID, and maybe their intentions were good, but it created a very high inflationary market. In particular, it affected the housing market. And on top of that, we've also reduced interest rates to encourage Canadians to borrow and keep our economy going. And we've created this situation where we've just driven up housing prices. So how do you fix it? My honest answer is, I don't know. I talked about it earlier in this video, is what's the incentive for somebody to go out and build affordable housing for folks unless it's highly, highly subsidized by the government and becomes more profitable to a home builder to build those houses than it does to build the other houses for the upper end of the market. Now, that being said, I think on the rental market side of things, there is an easier fix to it. We already have tons and tons of houses across Canada and tons of owners of those houses that would happily turn them into a duplex or a triplex or add a laneway house or some form of secondary suite to that property in order to provide more housing for Canadians. If we could cut away some of the red tape and bureaucracy that a lot of towns and municipalities and cities have right now when it comes to investors and homeowners that want to add another unit or another suite to their property, then I think we could end the run on the increase in rent that we're seeing right now, especially here in London. For the first time, we're seeing properties that people are literally bidding on rental properties right now. So it would be nice to see an end to that, and it could provide some more affordable housing for folks, maybe those first-time home buyers. It would allow them to save up a little bit more for their first home that they're actually going to purchase. So this is a conversation that I've had with lots of folks, and honestly, it's one of those conversations you can talk a lot about and not necessarily get to an endpoint and a for sure spot where you know that this would solve the issue. I think some of the things that I touched on would certainly help and would be things that I would be focusing on if I were running to lead this country, but I'm not, and I'm happy about that. But hopefully this has been helpful to you. I think that it's something that as Canadians we need to think about it, and if you're thinking about the next generation that is going to eventually want to buy a house, it's something we need to think about as well. So hopefully you found this video insightful and it's got the wheels turning a little bit. I'd love for you to leave a comment down below with your thoughts, especially if you think I've missed something major. I would love to hear your thoughts and have that dialogue. If you haven't subscribed yet, then we'd love for you to do that as well. Until next video, I hope you have a wonderful day.